This morning, college sports 40 under 40, top young coaches, players, execs, influencers, changing the game. Nicole Arbach and Chris Vannini, theathletic.com. Chris Vannini joins us now on 365 Sports. Chris, thank you very much for your time. When did this idea pop in your head?
It's something that Nicole and I talked about doing for years. Really, it's kind of something we always wanted to do. We just weren't quite sure how to organize it. If we wanted to do just college football or if we wanted to do all of college sports. And really, we kind of really got moving on this one a couple months ago when we kind of narrowed it, or I guess broadened it to exactly what we wanted it to be. And then spent the past couple months talking to just a lot of people across college sports about people they think are really good, people they maybe under the radar and don't get a lot of attention.
So, when did it start with coaches? How did it grow out of coaches and into, like, even throwing athletes in there, and they're obviously all under 40?
Yeah. It's like the idea of doing coaches / administrators was kind of the original idea we've had for a while. I mean, at The Athletic, we've done it in the NFL. We've done it in men's college basketball. We've done it in all of women's basketball. So it started with kind of coaches, administrators, but kind of as we thought about it, there's just so much more to college sports right now. And I think the NFL one that The Athletic did really kind of inspired us in terms of branching out to people in the media space, people in the business space, behind the scenes, TV executives, that type of stuff. Because there's a lot of hands in college sports because of how much has changed, especially with NIL over the last year. TV rights exploding. There's just a lot of different things going on in college sports. It's not just who's playing on the field, which is important. That's why we included athletes. But we wanted to kind of highlight just all the kinds of different people that are involved in the space now.
Well, Chris, one of those people, I mean, let's start off with some Big 12 flavor here. Zach Kittle at Texas Tech, the new offensive coordinator. I know a bit about him because of Western Kentucky and then Houston Baptist prior to that, and players like Jarrett Stearns and Bailey Zappi. But the big hire for McGuire to run that Red Raiders offense in year number one, how much did you get feedback-wise positively on Zach Kittle?
Yeah, I did. I actually did a story in the spring on Kittle as well, talking to Joe McGuire and a lot of people around him. I mean, yeah, a couple of years ago, he was the offensive coordinator at Houston Baptist in the FCS, and they played 4 games in 2020, 4 FBS games. They nearly beat Texas Tech. They put up a bunch of numbers against, I think, North Texas and Louisiana Tech maybe. So he gets hired at Western Kentucky, and they bring his quarterback, his receiver, and everybody with him, and they break all the that Texas Tech used to have, that B.J. Simmons used to have, the passing yards record, the passing touchdowns record, and that was in Kittle's first year as a FBS assistant coach. He's only 31 years old. He started as a student assistant at Texas Tech. He was working with Patrick Mahomes under Cliff Kingsbury back in the day, so he's come up under that air raid system, and Auburn wanted him, Nebraska wanted him, a lot of Power 5 programs wanted him after Western Kentucky. But he's from Lubbock, and he went to Texas Tech, so he wanted to go home.
You know, you mentioned how you guys have been thinking about this project for quite a long time, maybe years back. If you had done this 3 or 4 years ago, Blake Lawrence probably wouldn't be on the list, right, because of what we now have with NIL and Open Doors and a guy that's been on our show.
Yes, exactly. Open Doors is one of the most popular platforms for athletes and companies to kind of connect and create NIL deals and stuff like that, and they branched out to even more now. Yeah, Lawrence, former Nebraska football player, he really got the foundation of NIL before it even was legal. And so by the time things went forward, Open Doors was there to make a lot of money, make a lot of connections, set up a lot of deals for athletes, and really be one of the top kind of people in the NIL space. And yeah, at 33 years old, this marketing company really took off.
Who was, when you started calling around and just maybe asking for names you hadn't heard before, the name that people like kept repeating a lot?
It's a lot of the administrators, people who may not be as interesting to radio listeners, but people like Alabama's chief financial officer, Kyle Vasey. He's 30 years old. He's a former men's basketball manager at Arizona, followed Greg Burnover. He's 30 years old. He's the CFO, chief financial officer for Alabama Athletics. Like that's a pretty big deal. Got a couple other people like that. Yale's COO is 40. We had a couple 40-year-olds on the list. Tiffany Grimes, formerly at Alabama, now the deputy AD at Purdue. She's 39. These are people who are potentially future Power 5 ADs and stuff like that in the future. And those are some of the kinds of people we wanted to highlight with this list.
Dan Lanning, Oregon. Marcus Freeman, obviously, is now in charge of one of the great traditional programs in all of football with Notre Dame. What has been the feedback on your list? I know it came out. It's not been out there very long, but what has been some of the feedback you've received, if anything?
I've been very positive from a lot of people in the college sports industry, the various industries, who were really glad that somebody that they worked with got a shout out. So, like I said, maybe about half the people on this list are people most fans won't know. And that was the point, to kind of introduce these people to audiences who may not have known what they do behind the scenes, or rising stars type of things. You know Marcus Freeman, you know Dan Lanning, you know Lincoln Riley, Bryce Young, Caleb Williams. They're on the list. They're obviously very, very important. But there is a lot of the other people who are working their way up, who they were very happy to see, hey, I worked with him. I'm glad he got a shout out for this list. He definitely deserves it. And of course, got a lot of, hey, what about this person? What about this person? Oh, yeah. Narrowing it down to 40 was actually very tough. Like we really had a lot of really good nominations from people.
One of the guys that was mentioned, and I'm glad I saw his name, was Eric Grant with the Southland Conference, and what he did when they had people coming in, taking away some of their members. And we had him on. We were at McLean Stadium, and there was a big, huge symposium of a bunch of athletic directors and ADs and all the others. Same thing. And good to see his name on the list for what he's done to help the Southland Conference kind of survive.
Yeah, he joined the conference about a year ago, I want to say, from the Pac-12. He was one of the assistant commissioners there. Comes in last year as a deputy commissioner, gets promoted in April to the top commissioner job. And in that time, Lamar, which had already left for the WAC, decided to come back to the Southland and come back a year early. They're in it this year. And Incarnate Word, which had been considering and planning to jump to the WAC, just instead decides to stay at the Southland. So now that conference, very Texas, Louisiana focused regionally and leaning into that. And talked to some people around that league who said Chris did a very, very good job of developing relationships, getting meetings, making the case for the Southland, and really may have saved that league.
Chris Vannini, The Athletic, with us, SicEm365.com and 365 Radio.
Chris, can you recall a time where so much off the field has been the focus as opposed to on the field in college sports? And how did that play into especially recent events like USC, UCLA? How did that play into maybe some of the decisions you made as well in terms of the big movers and shakers, like an Adam Newman, for example, out of the Big Ten?
Yeah, Adam is the chief of staff, part of the council there for Kevin Warren in the Big Ten. He's quite young as well. He's been with Kevin Warren for a while. Very smart guy who's very involved in a lot of those decisions that are there. We had Derek Crocker. He's a VP of college sports for Fox. He does a lot of selecting of the games. And now that Fox is going to have, the biggest Big Ten game every week moving forward, that's a very, very important role. And Fox has obviously become a lot more involved in college sports. We have some agents in there as well. And that kind of goes back to what I said before. It's like there's the business of college sports is its own whole entire thing now. Like NIL, media rights, all this kinds of stuff. There's so many people trying to get a hand on something because there's so much just money that's in there that's obviously not going to the players at the moment. Yeah. And so that's kind of what we wanted to highlight with this.
At the moment. At the moment.
Yeah, which leads me to my next question. Yeah. The Big Ten made this gigantic TV deal. What are your thoughts on that? And your thoughts on Kevin Warren and his search for world domination?
Well, I think that's a good way to put it, honestly. I like it. It's not that it's imminent, but there is a feeling of manifest destiny maybe when you kind of think about what the Big Ten has done to this point. Kevin Warren comes from the NFL. It very much feels like he is trying to create an NFL in college, a nationwide conference essentially that would go coast to coast, and he now has done that. And he's got CBS, Fox, and NBC on board, the three networks that do almost all of the NFL games, and that's kind of where it's going. He said he could see it getting to 20 teams. I do think the Big Ten will expand at some point. I don't think they just want to have those two California teams out west. but I also don't think anything is imminent right away. They could have taken the rest of the Pac-12 if they wanted to. They didn't. They want Notre Dame because that's where the most money is. And so there's going to be a period of time here where you got to figure out if Notre Dame's going to make a decision or not. And then at that point, maybe the Big Ten looks into more. The idea of paying players, something Kevin Warren brought out there. The Big Ten is very much trying to get in front of this. You saw it a couple weeks ago with Big Ten Media Days with John Clifford and that potential union, not union group involving players potentially at some point. I think Kevin Warren sees and can tell that they're going to have to pay players. Either a court is going to force them to do it, or they're going to decide to do it themselves to get ahead of it. But I don't believe it's going to be out of necessarily the goodness of their hearts and give all the players all the money that they want, because that's not how business works. There's all this money, and they're not going to willingly give these millions of dollars if they don't have to. But they might do it in a way to stave off something more. But I think Kevin Warren sees that is coming down the line at some point.
Chris, what will it be like to actually cover a game? Wins, losses, stats, players, coaches, fans, atmosphere. How do you look forward to that?
Exciting. I'm going to Atlanta for Georgia, Oregon in week 1. I'll be on my couch for week 0, enjoying the couple of games we get there. And this is now really 3 straight years where we've just had so many things happen in the off season. You had COVID, you had realignment, you've got TV deals, you've got more realignment. And it's just like, I'm looking forward to getting back to the games and enjoying a Saturday from noon to however late you want to stay up past the Hawaii game of just watching college football. Very much looking forward to that.
Yep, we all are.
And thanks to Kevin Warren, pretty much that whole time you can watch Big Ten games now, or starting here very soon. If they just add Hawaii, they'll have everything. Yeah, basically time slot wise. But yeah, fascinating stuff, and I'm with you, man. It's good to have the season around the corner, but it does make all the rest of it quite spicy and interesting along the way. I enjoy the other stuff as well.
Yeah, it's a year-round sport now. It is a full year-round sport, just like pro sports, really.
Hey, Chris, great stuff. I love the idea. I do, and I love the way you kind of integrated, both of you did, different parts of it, not just coaches or players or whatever, but those involved in what basically is now the web of different parts and angles of college football. Thanks for your time. We appreciate it.
Yep, thanks for having me.
That's Chris Vannini, theathletic.com. If you have not read the story, if you're a member of The Athletic, which is an incredibly good buy, if you want to get the monthly subscription, it's very, very strong. And I love the way they really didn't just say the obvious. There's some that are obvious. Bryce Young, Caleb Williams, Lincoln Riley, Marcus Freeman, among a couple of others. But I like the way they went deeper into that as well. When we